So, just by way of introduction, climbing the mast single-handed. Okay, it can be a challenge. So we're going to talk today a number of different methods to climb the mast single-handed by yourself in relative safety. The precursor is, you want to make sure you practice this stuff, low down, get everything dialed in, get your systems dialed. With help. Maybe go to a climbing gym and practice some of this stuff where you're in total safety, or at a minimum, don't get more than a couple feet off the deck when you're trying some of this stuff. You know what? No fancy gear. What have you got to climb the mast? And we're going to show you just using very simple Prusik slings to ascend the mast. Four carabiners, 3 Prusik slings like this, climbing 2 lines, and we'll show you how to do that. Minimum amount of gear, super cheap, and potentially with equipment that you've already got on board. And then thirdly, we're going to say, okay, what happens if you've only got one halyard going to the top of the mast? How do you protect yourself? We're going to go through that too. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, the absolute worst case scenario where you got no halyards going to the top of the mast, and then how you're going to get to the top of the mast. And we'll talk about that as well in due course. Okay, well, we're going to show you the old school method, which is essentially in place of the Jumars or the mechanical ascending clamps. We've got 3 small diameter slings tied together, tied with a fisherman's knot. We're going to do a Prusik, and we're going to use minimum amount of gear. We got 4 carabiners. We've got 2 tether. We're going to have 2 tethers, plus a 3rd short tether, and then the 2 rope ladders, similar to what we had previously. These, of course, don't need to be specialty gear, and all you can make these out of rope or whatnot. But the first step is the working line. We'll show you the Prusik knot here. It's quite pretty straightforward, although you do have to get the form right, because otherwise it can slip. So you go through once, you come around, and then you'll come back through again, and you got to get it so that it's formed correctly, otherwise it can slide. So there you go, that is the correct. It slides up, and then when you load it, it locks on the rope. So we're going to have 2 of those on the working line, and 1 on the still 2, same anchoring system as before. Just we're exchanging the mechanical clamps with the Prusik knot. So you got 2 on the working line, and then the 3rd one is going to go on the back up. Same idea. Before we had the mechanical Prusik. This is the original Prusik using. When you use the Prusik, the Prusik itself should be a smaller diameter than what it is that you're trying to climb. So there's the backup. So we're going to take that backup, and we're going to use 1 carabiner on the backup line here, and then now the working line. So a little different setup because some difficulties is I'll use this short little guy on the upper one so that I can hang, and then I've got hands free to move the bottom. So on the bottom, we will get the 2 little rope ladders, or étriers, or aiders as they're called, and we'll get 1 carabiner. Now you can do this with more beaners. It's just easier. I'm just showing you the minimum. So you got the tether, the two in here, and then this. And you'll probably want to have the two on the bottom because you need that stability to slide the upper one up. So get this one up as high as you can, and then take your backup, slide that up the backup line as high as you can, and then now slide this up just underneath the top one, and then you got to get your feet in the stirrups. I find that the two stirrups, I need the two stirrups to ascend, to get rolling. So my feet in both, and now I stand up and I slide that up. You can see now already that I'm hanging off the top one in tension here, swinging around. I'm hanging off the top one on this short tether, and then that I have both hands free now to slide this one up underneath it. You can see it's moving around a bit, which is a common problem, so you gotta brace yourself. Now I'm gonna stand, I'm gonna grab the carabiner, stand, create some slack, slide that up. Now I can go 6 inches at a time. Now I can slide the bottom one up. The feet are still in the stirrups, and both stirrups, because I find I need to stand on both of my legs to get up. So there you go. I can get, well, maybe 6-8 inches at a time. Now I'm hanging off the top one, and I got both hands free to move the bottom one. Got to undo the knot, slide it up, unweight it, get it right underneath. Kind of a bit like a crab here, but now I can just get the beaner, standing up on both, slide it up. And you can see already this is quite a bit slower than the mechanical clamps. It does work. Now I'm going to slide my back up. So I'm just going to summarize here. Again, you got I tied these in directly to the harness with a girth hitch just to save on carabiners. The whole thing is done with 4 carabiners. You got one on the lower Prusik, one on the higher, one on the safety, and then you got one locking carabiner, which is to get down, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But so we've essentially walked through all of that. The key to the puzzle is one of the keys. Okay, you've always got your safety Prusik. That's the backup, and this short one is above the lower one with the 2 stirrups, and this one's got a tether on it so that you're attached to it also. Okay, so now presume that we've actually got to the top of the mast, and now we're at the top, and now we want to come down. So what I'm going to show you here is what's called a Monter Hitch. So you get your locking carabiner. It'd be nicer to have a wide mouth beaner for the Monter, because the Monter can jam in one of these. But basically the Monter is you take the rope, you bring it across, and you make a loop just like that, and then you clip both of them. Now you'll know, and you lock it. You'll know when you got it right because you can give yourself slack, or you can flip it through and take the slack in. So that is the telltale of the Monter Hitch. So it's a friction knot, and the beauty of it is that you can tie it off and release it under load in principle. So if you have a wider pear-shaped beaner, it's better. So that is how you tie it off, and the idea being that under load you can pull on it and then release it, let the knot flip, and away you go. So but the process is you put on the Monter, you tie it off, and you could even clip that to yourself or tie a stopper knot if you wanted to, but for the sake of this, so now you got to stand up on your stirrups, you know, to get high enough to get the weight onto the munter. So you're going to stand on your stirrup, and that allows you to unclip the top one. So now that's unclipped, and now you can ease yourself down onto the munter. So now my weight is on the munter completely, and you can take off the top prusik. Now I've got my feet out of the stirrups, so I can take off the bottom prusik as well. My weight on the munter, and clip it so I don't drop it. My weight's on the munter. Now I pull this through, which again with the odd narrow beaner is a little bit trickier, but typically I can pull that through and it'll pop. There we go. So it pops, and then now I can let it slide, and now I'm rappelling down the line on the Monter Hitch. And if you let go of this, you are going to hit the ground. So if you need to stop, you got to tie it off again. So that's one of the that's the way you come down, using the Monter Hitch, and it's a friction way to rappel. Now you can also use the Prusiks to climb down. I would certainly recommend if you want to try this in real life, practice it literally on the ground with no height involved. You make sure that you got the knot, the knots properly. These are key things that if you make a mistake at the top of the mast and you unclip, from your Prusiks, you got a backup. Okay, so you got your backup, but still, this is hazardous activity. So, if you are going to do the munter, it does work. I would advise getting a wide gate carabiner. That makes the working of the knot a lot easier, especially on halyards that have been hanging around on the boat for a while. And again, so you tighten it, flip the knot. It's probably better to flip the knot and get it ready to go down, so that now, when it's under load, okay, now you can pull it through, and now you're lowering yourself down. So there are some peculiarities to the munter. I would advise, spend the money on a GriGri, but if you don't have it, and you need to rappel off the top of your mast, you can use a munter. You can also down climb, lowering each of the Prusiks. It's a lot of work. It's a lot more work, but the munter does work. Now there's also a suite of other things you can do. I'm showing you the two extremes. One is basically 4 carabiners and 3 Prusiks, plus some tethers and some other slings. There's everything in between. You can use the GriGri and one mechanical ascender. Everything else is a hybrid between those two extremes. The first case that we did had 2 mechanical ascenders, 1 mechanical Prusik, 2 tethers, and 2 sets of rope ladders, or two rope ladders. And then the other extreme, low tech, 3 Prusiks, 3 Prusik knots, 3 Prusiks. Similarly, the 2 rope ladders, the 2 tethers, and the backup. But so the concepts are the same. You want to always have your backup. Now, what do you do, if, a special case? Now, we've covered all of that ground. Now, what do you do if you're offshore and, you know what, you've only got one halyard going to the top of the mast? Okay, well now you don't have a backup. You don't have a backup. So, so what do? I would never advise just climbing on a single line. I'd always want to have a backup. So there's a number of ways to solve that problem, and one of them is to effectively, put your own prusik around the mast as your backup. So you're climbing one rope, and get a good hefty piece of line, and literally girth hitch it around the mast, and bring it all the way through. And well, guess what? Now we got a prusik around the mast. So as you're climbing, you're sending the rope, and you're sliding this up, and that's your back. That becomes your backup. So you'd clip your carabiner into here. Well, now you got a prusik backup on the mast, so that if this line fails, now you do have a backup. Okay, so then you get up to the spreaders. Okay, now to be totally safe, you would have two of these. So you would get the next one, put it above the spreaders, and then take this one off, so that you're always connected to the mast twice. Okay, now you're in the absolute worst scenario ever, where you got no halyards going to the top of the mast. How are you going to climb the mast? Well, now you make a system like this with two of these, or actually three. So you've always got at least two on the mast. When you pass the spreader, you got two below. You can use these rope ladders on the prusiks to actually climb the mast, like this. You'd stand up, you slide the top one up. You're using these. Basically, put three prusiks around the mast. You can get to the top of the mast, in relative safety, with always a minimum of 2 anchors to the mast, just like we did here with the ropes. But now you've got it around the mast with the prusik. So that's another application where you could get to the top of a mast. You can get to the top of any pole with no halyards whatsoever, just by putting a prusik right around the mast. And these are bomb-proof, and you make them nice and thick. And you got 3 of them, so you got 2 of them that you're sliding up, and then when you're gonna pass the spreader, you move one above the spreader. So and then you put the second one above the spreader. You take the bottom one off. You always got a minimum of 2 chances, 2 pieces of rope around the mast to the deck, and you can ascend. Now you can ascend to the top of your mast in total safety with no halyards, and it's a hell of a lot of work, let me tell you. But you can do it, and then sometimes it's the only option that you have. You'll be delighted to have seen this little trick in the event that you ever have to do it. That brings us to the close. Thank you very much. Till next time.